We have a Una who's not in the mood.
Una's on camera, though. Probably be the only time she'll be on all evening.
She's so not in the mood for this.
She's going to get away, and that'll be the last we see of her tonight, most likely. Because mood.
We're in a mood.
Heckin' mood.
Say hi, Una. Hi to your fans. Say hi. So not in the mood for this moment.
Oh.
Hi, Vincent. You saying hi too?
Well, as usual, we're giving our friends with the Vibe Radio.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jump that way. Thank you. Longest drinks are good.
Blog Talk Radio.
Nice, sir.
So now we got the Vibe Radio Network world. We have the Facebook Live world. And good evening, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to
Haunted Sports.
Haunted Sports. The end of January.
Yes, end of January.
Was I about to say September?
I hope not.
I have no idea. Does time mean anything anymore?
Kind of.
No. Anyways, yeah. Hope everybody's doing all right this evening. And before we dive into anything, just want to give a quick shout out to our friend Glenn,
Yes.
who oftentimes watches the show. He's feeling a bit under the weather, and probably don't expect to see him online tonight, unfortunately. But we want to just give him best wishes and hope that he's feeling better soon.
Yeah. So, Glenn, this is for you.
Cheers,
my beer.
Cheers.
And hopefully we will see you back on here live soon. But in the meantime, you can catch us on the replay.
Yep. So, as always, we catch those replays on Facebook and also the Vibe Radio Network. You can go ahead and catch all of our shows back after the fact. And yeah, we got Patrick's here. Good evening. Good evening, Patrick. And yes, we're looking very sporty. We have our
Well, we figured we should wear them because we have them.
We have them. Our poor hapless Sabres who have never ever won a Stanley Cup.
Are they doing as bad as the Canadians this year?
I honestly haven't been paying attention, which probably doesn't say anything good. But anyways, yeah. So aside from that, but hello to Laura as well, and thank you for sharing in those good wishes for Glenn.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad to have you all here tonight, and also we hope that our friend Alex is here too, or at least that she'll be able to catch up on this later, because she was the one that floated this idea to us, and admittedly it is a fantastic idea because
it was a fun rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, it was. Not one of the topics that we'd ever thought about covering before, which definitely enjoy being able to dive down those new research holes, and it was quite the bounty of material.
Yeah, it was.
So
I never expected to get a huge hit when I just Googled ghost sports stories.
Not to mention the ones that are in our library and all that good stuff as well. So yeah,
I hit an ESPN article right off the bat of 5 stories. I was like, okay, here we go.
Yep. Not to mention that we'll probably have most likely at some point we'll be able to do a second episode at some point. So yeah, we got a lot to work with here tonight, and so we're just going to be kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll let
you start.
Oh, I get to start.
I get
to read my introduction.
Yes.
I think it was a fairly short introduction tonight, but yes. So as you know, obviously, there's Alex. Hi, Alex. As you know, it's always spooky season for us here at Haunts of Richmond. I mean,
And well, the decor outside is skeletal Olympics.
Yeah, we got skeletons sitting out front. We got signs hanging up inside saying it's always Halloween. But for many people, this time of year it's better known for major sporting events. We have to admit that. I mean, obviously, people are not necessarily the spooky stuff isn't at the forefront of everybody's mind right now.
It's cold outside.
Yeah, it's a little cold outside. What cold weather people often equate with hockey, and we do in fact have the NHL All Star game, and the All Star activities are going to be coming up here in just a few days, I think it is. Of course, the Super Bowl is right around the corner, and this is a year for the Winter Olympics.
Yes.
So yeah,
starting Friday.
Yeah, starting Friday. So we got all of that stuff coming up here. And well, if you would actually think about, putting ghosts and sports in the same sentence, you would be leaving a notable piece of sporting history on the sideline. Yes, that was an intentional pun. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry,
very
my
much.
Irish shot's not as good as
Appreciate it.
Marshall's.
So, the sports world has many haunts, and it's our pleasure to be able to share some of these tales with you in this sporting season. So, we're actually first going to be going to a nice little city that I have a lot of fondness for. I've been there a few times.
I need to go.
Yeah, we need to get Beth up there. It's a fantastic little city if you've never been. But I'm talking about Madison, Wisconsin. Now, it's the capital of the state of Wisconsin, and it is home to the University of Wisconsin, which is the home of the Badgers. That is their mascot up there at the University of Wisconsin. Now, the Badgers can claim a long and proud history of sporting success, including their football program that is centered around the historic Camp Randall Stadium. However, long before Camp Randall Stadium became the home to Wisconsin football, all the way back in 1917, the site served as a barracks and a training ground for Union soldiers during the Civil War. Named after the state's governor, Alexander Randall, a fierce abolitionist who had threatened for Wisconsin to secede from the Union if Abraham Lincoln didn't win the presidency and end slavery, Camp Randall started as a training facility for the 6th Regiment Wisconsin Infantry. But it also saw service as a prisoner of war camp. And over the course of the war, over 70,000 Union soldiers received training there. And following a major Union victory in April of 1862 at the Battle of Island Number 10, it was tasked with taking in about 1,400 Confederate soldiers as prisoners of war. Now, to say that the facility was ill-prepared for the sheer volume of prisoners would be an understatement. Within weeks, illness spread rapidly through the camp, and by June, all of the remaining prisoners were moved to Camp Douglas in Chicago due to the inadequate and unsuitable conditions. Ultimately, 140 men died on site during the camp's brief existence as a prison, so about 10% of the men who were taken prisoner never left Camp Randall. Those that died there were interred in a mass grave nearby, now known as Confederate Rest. Interesting side note, Confederate Rest is the northernmost Confederate graveyard in the nation. It's this grim piece of the area's history that many locals and Badgers football fans alike think explains the chilling sightings that have taken place around the stadium for years. Tailgaters have described seeing spirits ahead of games, reportedly wearing Confederate gray uniforms, as well as various slings and bandages. They wander the stadium grounds, seemingly oblivious to the rowdy football crowd around them. The nature of the apparitions leads many to think that these are residual hauntings, mental impressions on the landscape that are replaying the traumatic events time and again. It gives some glimmer of hope that these are not spirits that are doomed to suffer without end, but rather that their experience at the time was so powerful that the emotions echo across the ages. So if you ever find yourself in Madison, Wisconsin and want to catch a football game, just be aware that some spirits from 160 years ago might be accompanying you and 80,000 other football fans on your way to the stands. And I think it's one of the 50 largest stadiums, period, anywhere around the world.
I think so, yeah.
It's absolutely massive, and even though it wasn't that big when it was first built in 1917, the original stadium is still there at the core. They kept building and adding onto that original stadium to come up with this absolutely massive complex. So, I'll go take care of that in just a minute.
Una is entering her teenage years of defiance.
Yep. And
that's the mood tonight.
And Alex says sorry about the Bills. Yeah, that was
rotten.
That was.
Those overtime rules need to be changed.
It was quite the amazing game and quite the amazing last 2 minutes. Yeah. Oh well. Is what it is.
Well, it just means I'll be watching Olympics that night, not football.
Yep, probably.
Most likely.
We'll see. One thing at a time.
We'll see how tired we are.
I will go address the rebellion taking place on the dining room table where she does not belong.
Here we have a 3,000-piece puzzle. All right, so we're going to jump across the pond because I could not do haunted sports stadiums and not include some from other locations outside the U.S. So we're going to go to St. Mary's Stadium in Southampton, England, or United Kingdom. Hello, rebellious one. Now, of course, Southampton is a coastal city, and after a 103-year run at the Dell, Southampton FC moved to a brand new stadium about 2 miles away in 2001. For the uninitiated, the FC stands for Football Club, original football, not our football, and aka the soccer team. Now, the new stadium, named St. Mary's Stadium after the nearby church that founded the team in its earliest days, is a state-of-the-art facility that boasts over 32,000 seats to host the team's many fans. There was just one enormous problem during the team's first season at St. Mary's Stadium. They couldn't win a game. Naturally, fans are inclined to do what they do. They search for reasons for why this embarrassing losing streak is happening. We gotta blame something, right? Some said supporters of the Portsmouth Football Club, its archival buried in the shirt underneath the stadium during construction, jinxed the team. But others believed that it was something more sinister at play. Scattered reports arose of workers that would avoid being alone at night in the stadium. They would report seeing shadows move of their own volition and hearing disembodied voices echoing throughout the empty corridors. While these stories were certainly chilling in their own effect, they started to give rise to the rumors that a curse rested over the stadium and the team that now called it home. Now, who or what would cause such a curse? Because we know curses are hand in hand with sports legends. Well, emotions are certainly running high when it comes to your favorite sporting team or their competitors. A curse might seem a little extreme, but it's not unheard of. Unless the football club built their stadium right on top of your ancient burial ground.
Admittedly, at this point, is there any place in the UK that's not an ancient burial ground?
There's got to be walk paths. They're not big enough for a stadium.
I'm just saying.
Anyway.
Not to say that I condone it, but...
No point in fact, do a blessing, please, on the land before you break ground. Just saying. So the modern stadium lies directly in the heart of what was once an Anglo-Saxon settlement known as Hamwick. The graves and the human remains dating back to the 7th century were discovered on what became the stadium grounds. Flying cat? Archaeologists continue to discover artifacts all across the property that date back more than a millennia. Clearly spooked by the happenings, or perhaps just the losing record, the team nicknamed the Saints brought in a pagan witch, and Conley actually hoped that by putting the wrathful spirits and curses to rest, things would improve. Conley performed what would be known as a clearing ritual, intended to send the lingering spirits forward into the afterlife. While one might be tempted to label them evil spirits, it's kind of hard to blame them, given the fact that their burial site was abandoned. Just for a little extra insurance, Conley also performed a blessing to bring back a little luck to the downtrodden football club as well. And just hours after Conley performed her ritual, the Southampton Football Club won its first game at the new stadium. While the team has fared better since the first season, it's said that the ritual didn't completely stop the strange happenings around the stadium. The employees and fans alike still share stories about supernatural experiences at St. Mary's Stadium, and the ongoing presence today gives a somewhat unsettling charm to the stadium at the heart of Southampton. Yeah, maybe it's a different version of the Angels in the Outfield. Ghosts in the soccer pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Spirits on the pitch.
We have Naughty Kitties tonight.
And she's back up there. Hey, Donnie.
No, she's not up there.
Oh.
Broom's on the ground again, Mom.
Ah. Yes, my dear old familiar Vincent has decided that my brooms in the house are his toys. If he starts riding one, we're going to have issues. Because I want to learn that trick first. Just saying. They're my brooms. Hockey Hall of Fame. Here we go.
What?
Hockey Hall of Fame.
Ooh, I get to do that?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. Yay.
Were there any comments before we do Hall of Fame?
Mostly about the kitty cats.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.
See, Nico's being very, very good. He's right over here on top of my heating pad. He's smart.
We need do we need heating pads for all the cats?
Our microwave would protest.
Or what?
Microwave would protest.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. Anyways, so the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, of course, it is most closely related with the NHL. Not all NHL, but it is kind of the main focus. It's actually kind of one of the main criticisms that the Hockey Hall of Fame has faced over the years. But
Yep.
we are going to start with a little bit of background on the NHL.
National Hockey League.
National Hockey League has a long history dating back to 1917, so it goes back quite a ways. It is the second oldest professional sports league that's still around today. It's second only to Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball actually can trace its roots all the way back to the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, so it's hard to compete with that. Now, after nearly 30 years in existence, the NHL helped lay the groundwork for the Hockey Hall of Fame in the late 1940s. And while the NHL is still central to the Hockey Hall of Fame, the museum stands as an independent organization that showcases and honors the full history of ice hockey. The Hockey Hall of Fame has called several places home since its founding, but it is called Yonge Street in downtown Toronto home since 1993. The museum's quote-unquote modern facility is housed in an elegant historic structure that was built for the Bank of Montreal in 1888. Considering the building's long history, there is little surprise that it hosts more spirits than those of defunct hockey teams. Rest in peace the Hartford Whalers, Quebec Nordiques, the Atlanta Thrashers, and the Minnesota North Stars. Admittedly, not all of those teams completely went belly up, some of them relocated, etc., but you catch the point. So, and that is just to name a few. There's been a lot of hockey teams that have come and gone over the generations. Now, visitors have long reported seeing a woman with long, dark hair, particularly in and around the second floor women's restroom.
It's always the bathroom. Always the bathroom.
And usually the women's one, if
yes.
it's, yes.
And that's the thing I screamed when I read the story. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
What is it with our bathrooms?
You know you're going to go visit it when we get
Oh,
to
heck
when we get the chance
yes.
to go. Of course you are. Anyways,
I'm dragging Marcia with me.
the spirit is believed to be a former bank employee named Dorothea. In 1953, the 19-year-old shot herself in the women's bathroom at the bank. She died at the hospital the next day. There are many rumors and theories as to what caused Dorothea to take her life, but none have ever been confirmed. The Toronto Star discovered the presumed identity in 2009 after years of reports of a ghost named Dorothy. In the years after Dorothea's death, employees of the bank began to report unusual activity. Lights would inexplicably turn on and off, doors and windows would open and close of their own volition. Some employees would step away from their work for a moment and they would come back and find their desk in disarray. They would hear strange sounds like phantom footsteps or, the most unsettling of all, disembodied shrieking. The most common thing that people would report, though, is the feeling of a distinct presence, like someone else there watching them. The spot this feeling was strongest was in the women's restroom on the second floor of the bank. It got to this point where the employees who were using that restroom were so uncomfortable in there that the bank had to put a second restroom in the basement because so many people were refusing to use the bathroom on the second floor. While the bank ultimately moved, the strange occurrences remained. Employees and guests of the Hall of Fame have reported hearing similar noises and experiencing the same overwhelming sense of not being alone. One employee at the hall shared a story of a young boy on a tour of the museum with his parents and other adults. At one point, the boy stopped in his tracks and began staring intently at a wall. Someone asked him what was wrong, and he responded by pointing and asking, "Can't you see her?" No one else in the group could see anything or anyone, but the young boy was insistent he was seeing a woman with long dark hair walk in and out of the wall. He couldn't believe that no one else could see her. Stories like this have made it one of the most well-known haunted spots in Toronto. And while the museum doesn't necessarily promote its haunted history, it doesn't exactly deny it either. The original Haunted Walk of Toronto has permission from the Hall of Fame to use their front courtyard as a meeting place for the tour. And they hosted a special Halloween event on the second floor of the museum in 2013. For this special event, the walking tour that night was allowed to come inside and finish the tour a short way from the reportedly haunted restroom. During the conclusion of the tour, one man left the group to use the facilities. When he came back, he reported that he had heard a woman screaming in the adjacent women's restroom. The man was quite shaken by his encounter, yet he was only the latest in a string of many people to have a brush with the paranormal in the Hockey Hall of Fame. On a related note, we're happy to report that today the Hockey Hall of Fame is finally reopening to the public after a prolonged closure due to COVID. So next time you're north of the border, pop in to check out this archive of hockey history, and maybe some hauntings as well. So yeah, just reopened today, January 31st. So. And yeah, you can go north of the border now too. Mm-hmm. You have to go through, I think, all the COVID stuff and all that. We won't get into those details, but anyways, I think you can go ahead and visit Canada for recreational purposes again. A country well worth visiting, I promise.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of fun things to do in Toronto besides the Hockey Hall of Fame. We just haven't done it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, amazingly so. We've been there a couple of times and never made it.
Yeah, we've gone for theater.
Yep.
And museum stuff. You know?
Theater was the cornerstone of both of those visits, though.
Yep.
Lion King and...
Did you see Phantom up there?
I saw Phantom up there a couple of times.
Yeah. We saw the Princess Diana exhibit up there.
Yes, we did.
That was the other trip with your parents.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we did not actually go to the theater on that one. That was we went for the... Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We saw Medieval Knights dinner show.
Ah, yes, the Medieval Times. Yep.
Yeah.
Good times.
So this next one was fun because I knew about it and he didn't. And it's his hometown. How did I know this?
I can't know everything.
I'm the research rabbit hole person, so that's why I knew it.
I don't remotely know anything, so it's okay.
So we're going to Rochester, New York, and Frontier Field. In the mid-1990s, the Rochester Red Wings were one of the winningest minor league baseball teams in history. The AAA squad, then an affiliate with the Baltimore Orioles, now they're part of the Minnesota Twins organization. They had won 18 titles in nearly 100 years of existence and had won the division title most recently in 1993 and 1995. With a dedicated fan base, they decided it's time for a new stadium, and, of course, the franchise would be moved over. Construction got underway for the new facility in downtown Rochester in 1996, and the workers reported discovering bones on the grounds underneath where the stadium eventually went. It remains uncertain if they were human remains or that of an animal, or if they were even there at all, but the rumors persist to this day, and an off-cited explanation for anything strange happens at the ballpark. The team moved to Frontier Field for the start of the 1997 season, and members of the grounds and crew and custodial staff started reporting inexplicable happenings almost immediately, including televisions randomly turning on in the rooms where no one had been for days, or lights turning on and off. In 2004, unsettled employees brought in a team of ghost experts from Rochester Paranormal to have a look at the stadium. The investigators claimed that they had encountered a number of ghosts of people who had previously lived in the area, some of whom actually seemed pleased that their old home had been converted into something that brought joy to people. While this sentiment might not be universal amongst many of the spirits who seem to linger there, the activity was benign enough for Frontier Field to embrace the title of the world's first officially haunted stadium.
Officially.
The team and the stadium capitalized on the distinction for several years and hosted Fear at the Frontier event around Halloween. One-time Red Wings spokesperson admitted that despite his own lack of belief in the paranormal, there might be something to the discomfort that people feel in the stadium after hours. He said, "I think there's something inherently creepy about the end of the night at a sporting venue that's supposed to have thousands of people in it cheering, having fun, drinking beer, and just having a good old time. And at the end of the night, all the lights are turned off, and you are one of the lone bodies in a huge facility. When there's an unexpected noise, it's jarring because there isn't supposed to be anybody out there." For their part, many fans have tried to blame the team's struggles after moving to the stadium on the paranormal. For a team that had a long winning tradition, it's the only explanation that they can think of for not having won a title since moving to the stadium 25 years ago. And while the players generally try to put the paranormal tales aside when they're at home, they are on the road, and some players refuse to stay in certain hotels because of their haunting legacies. And that brings us to our next stop.
I've never been to a baseball game at Frontier Field. The only game I've been to at Frontier Field, and what we didn't mention, was that it shared the stadium with the Rochester Rhinos, which was the local soccer club, who was also quite respectable in their own right. Frontier Field is quite the facility.
Yeah.
The one time I remember it being there, it made quite the impression on me. But
And didn't it host an outdoor hockey game at one point?
yes, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Actually, I think it hosted a series of them.
Okay.
Where with the minor league equivalent of the Winter Classic. Now, of course, Rochester has the Rochester Americans,
Yes.
or the Amherst, as they're affectionately known.
Which we love to go watch.
Yeah, and we went and saw one of their games the last time we were up there, which has been admittedly too long.
Last time we were up there, we actually tried to see a game, and they were abroad.
Yeah, but I caught a lot of baseball games when I was younger up there at the old Silver Stadium, was the Frontier Field's predecessor, and saw the Red Wings win many a game there. But yeah, unfortunately, it seemed to be the curse of the new stadium for whatever reason. So this is what it is. But next time we get up there, which we do have to get up there, it's been a little too long.
Hopefully in March.
Yeah, we'll go catch some sporting events. So, to the west of Rochester, hopping across the Great Lakes, we get to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Stop number 2 in Wisconsin for tonight. It's there that many visiting players absolutely refuse to stay in the historic Pfister Hotel. There are countless stories from players around Major League Baseball about their strange encounters at the swanky establishment. In hopes of creating the grandest hotel in the city, Guido Pfister began working on the hotel in the late 19th century. And yes, that's really his name. I hope nobody's offended, because it's
his name. It's on his birth certificate.
Anyways.
Continuing.
So, now, Pfister died a month before its opening, but his son Charles was determined to carry out his father's vision. It opened in 1893 and was immediately successful. It has hosted many U.S. presidents during its esteemed history, and Charles Pfister, who never married or had children of his own, worked tirelessly for the rest of his days to ensure his father's legacy carried on at the property. Charles even lived in one of the suites for many years and was the operations manager of the hotel. And some say he never left the hotel after his death in 1927. Guests have described seeing an older, portly, well-dressed, smiling spirit who resembles Pfister's portrait still hanging in the hotel. He's been spotted looking over the lobby as well as various other parts of the hotel, and has become something of an adored figure in the city, complete with his own parody Twitter account. His only goal seems to be the continued comfort of guests to this day. Professional baseball players seem to have had the most experiences with Pfister's ghost over the years. Believes that this is simply Pfister trying to help out his hometown Brewers and give them the ultimate home field advantage. While some think that the incidents were actually players playing pranks on their teammates, others think that even if this is the case, that it is Pfister encouraging the opposing players' mischievous sides. Now, during Pfister's lifetime, it was common for traveling teams to be harassed during their entire stay in Milwaukee. Home field advantage for the Brewers meant not just knowing the field and the conditions, but you got to rest comfortably while your fans would go out to the traveling team's hotel and pound on the windows all night long. Many players have publicly discussed their paranormal encounters at the Pfister. In 2013, Michael Young, then a member of the Texas Rangers, recalled an experience he had at the hotel in a story for ESPN magazine. He said, "Oh, bleep, that place. Listen, I'm not someone who spreads ghost stories, so if I'm telling you this, it happened. A couple years ago, I was lying in bed after a night game and I was out. My room was locked, but I heard these footsteps inside my room stomping around. I'd heard all these stories about the hotel, so I was wide awake at that point. And then I heard it again, these footsteps on the floor, so I yelled out, 'Hey, make yourself at home. Hang out. Have a seat, but do not wake me up. Okay?' After that, I didn't hear a thing for the rest of the night. I just let him know that he was welcome, that we could be pals, that he could marinate in there for a while, for as long as he needed to, just as long as he didn't wake me up." Bryce Harper of the Washington Nationals had a similar experience. He recalled, "One time last summer before I went to sleep, I laid a pair of jeans and a shirt on that table at the foot of the bed. Those things in hotels that you sit on and put on your shoes. I just laid them out, simple as that. When I woke up in the morning, I swear on everything, the clothes were on the floor and the table was on the opposite side of the room against the wall. I was so flustered. I honestly thought there might be someone in my room. I had no idea what the hell just happened. So I actually looked around and then I checked to see if the door was still latched, and it was." Harper went on to press several of his teammates to see if they were pranking him. They all swore that they did not. Harper was determined to not spend another night in that room and asked the front desk to move him to another floor for the duration of his stay. Now, Pablo Sandoval of the San Francisco Giants said, "I don't like the ghosts there. In 2009, I went to take a shower and I remember putting my iPod next to a speaker. When I came out, it was playing music and I have no idea why. I left the hotel after that. I didn't want to stay there. In 2010, me and Edgar Renteria stayed down the street and paid for it on our own. Then last month, I decided to stay there again. I asked myself, why do I have to be afraid? The only thing I asked the ghosts was to let me sleep, and that they did." Finally, C.J. Wilson of the LA Angels recalled, "I've had lots of experiences there. I was on the computer one night doing my typical shtick, surfing the web, sending an email, editing a photo, and then, all of a sudden, the lights started flickering. I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be so pissed if my computer dies. Then the lights just shut off. And then the TV shuts off. And then the lights turn back on. But the light at the front door turns off. I just yelled out, 'Really? I have this thing with ghosts. Just engage them or confront them. Just say, hey man, I'm here to chill out. I'm just here to send some emails. No big deal. Just leave me alone.' So after that, I went back to whatever I was doing on the computer. But then 30 minutes later, there's scratching on the walls. Now I'm thinking, okay, it's the Midwest. There could be a possum or something in the wall, right? That's possible, isn't it? All I knew was that there was definitely noises coming from the wall. I just said out loud again, can you please just leave me alone? I'm really trying to work here. At this point, I'm on edge. I'm literally looking to see if there are people in the hallway, if someone's trying to pull something. We'll do that sometimes. Take a guy's key card and hide in the closet or behind the shower curtain and jump out. But then the lights really started going crazy. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't want anything from you. Leave me alone. Or write it down. Write down what you want. I can't communicate with you through the lights. The next day, we all show up at the park and everyone has this uneasy feeling, like we had bad Chinese food or something. I said to one of my teammates, you wouldn't believe the bleep that was going on in my hotel room last night. And another guy said, oh my God, are you talking about the bleep you heard? Everybody had a story. One dude got locked in his bathroom after he had to call, he had to get the hotel to get him out. Another guy had the lights turn off when he was in the shower. another guy saw something. I don't get too terribly concerned unless things start shattering in the room, so it was fine. I don't get that much sleep anyway. But you just get a vibe when you walk in. It almost feels like you're in Prague or something. It's very gothic. Lots of gold enamel, crosswalks and atriums everywhere. Being on the road so much, we're used to a standard cookie-cutter place, but this hotel totally stands alone. And that's not the only hotel in there.
I love to say that, there are some places these guys, they'll pay for a room out of their own pocket because they are so put off by the spirits and the specters.
Yeah. Now, Craig does point out here that no matter how much the ghost of the Pfister might try to help out the Brewers, they have only played in one World Series all the way back in 1982.
Yep.
So
he's trying, but it's not working.
The Brewers don't exactly have what you might call a winning tradition.
No.
Here's what it is.
But we're going to jump over to Oklahoma City, where players, baseball players have met Pfister. Basketball players, on the other hand, have Skirvin. An Oklahoma City landmark has more than its fair share of believers. Players in town to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder have their fair share of experience as well, and more than one has publicly blamed their lackluster experience on the court due to a restless night at the Skirvin Hotel. Many refer to the ghost of a woman named Effie as the primary spirit who walks the halls of this hotel. As legend goes, the hotel's founder was owner W.B. Scriven, and he had an affair with a maid named Effie. She became pregnant with his child, and in hopes of avoiding a public disgrace, he locked her in a room on the 10th floor throughout her pregnancy so she would not be seen. After giving birth, she was so despondent by her situation that she jumped out of the window with her baby in her arms and plunged to her death. Guests have reported seeing a female ghost with long, dark hair, as well as hearing a baby's cries at all hours of the night. But there isn't evidence of such a woman that ever existed. Skirvin's wife died 3 years before the hotel opened its doors in 1911, so a relationship with another woman wouldn't have been much of a scandal. In fact, Skirvin reportedly had a reputation for being known as a womanizer and a heavy drinker. And there were also said to be salacious activities happening on the hotel's then top floor. That said, fact or fiction, the tales are just one piece of the hotel's haunted aura. After the oil bust of the 1980s, the Skirvin closed in 1988 after decades of prominence. Once the epitome of wealth and status in Oklahoma, it sat empty for about 19 years before reopening as part of a large renovation project in 2007. Ghost stories began emerging during its closure as it sat there, a massive abandoned building in the heart of the state's capital city. For their part, NBA players across the league know the tales of the Skirvin as well. They particularly know about Effie. An Oklahoma City veteran player, Karen Butler, was once quoted saying, "Everyone in the league knows about her. Hopefully she'll haunt all the teams that come to play to the playoffs." Often short on sleep and battling punishing playing schedules, the visiting players have reported instances of unexplained door slams, bathtubs mysteriously filling with water, and groans and screams from a woman and a baby, turning the hotel into a defensive weapon for the hometown Thunder. ESPN columnist Bill Simmons had his own brush with Effie and a child during one night at the Skirvin. He said, "Suddenly it dawned on me I wasn't alone. I had an overpowering sensation that someone was in the room. And until you've experienced that feeling, you can't really understand what it's like. Your blood is just swishing through your veins at 200 miles per hour, and you don't really understand why. Your body reacts for a few seconds before your brain does. I kept the lights on and the television, and that's how I spent the next 3.5 hours. Half asleep, half awake, completely spooked." The words "man up" did not even enter the equation. Question?
Yeah, I'm not, Patrick, I'm not sure which hotel you were referring to, whether it was the Pfister or the Scriven, but they are both still there.
Yeah.
The spelling might be a little odd, so if you're trying to...
Hello, Vincent. Say hi to everybody.
So
Say
if
hi,
you're
I'm so cute.
if you're trying to look these places up online, Pfister is actually spelled with a silent P on the front. So it's Pfister Hotel, and it is still there in Milwaukee. And the other one, the
Scriven.
Scriven
Is Skirvin.
yeah, so kind of the spelling is a little unusual, but that might be why you may be having some trouble finding them if you're trying to look them up online. But I just checked, and both of the my bad, it was renovated, not torn down. Oh yeah, the P threw me. LOL.
That's okay.
Yep, it happens.
Alright.
Trust me, it's one of those. Both of those were names that I had to look
Double
at
check.
and read to myself several times. But
Oh, you finally gave up the heating pad, buddy? Has it gotten too cold? Don't bite. Mister, I'm 9 on everything.
he's a little feisty. So, okay, so Pfister and Scriven got it. That's cool. Thanks for the clarification. Of course, that's what we're here for. At least one of those reasons.
Yes.
Anyways, but so yeah, we are going to stay in America's heartland for this next story as we move to Kansas City's Kemper Arena. Now, this, bear with us for just a minute. I know that this kind of raises a high level of skepticism with a lot of people, but while the competitive nature of professional wrestling may be questionable, there is little question that the drama that unfolds within the ring entails tremendous athleticism and no small amount of risk. So yeah,
Jumping off those ropes isn't easy.
yeah, it might be basically a soap opera,
But people enjoy it.
and it definitely does have a high amount of athleticism involved. So we will definitely give them credit for that, even if it's not necessarily quite so competitive as they might like you to make it out to be. Now, many of these wrestlers, due to the nature of the sport, have suffered severe injuries and sometimes, unfortunately, even death while engaged in their performances. One such unfortunate athlete is Owen Hart, who tragically fell to his death while he was being lowered into the ring for a WWF show in Kemper Arena in 1999. An article in the Kansas City Star later suggested that Hart's presence seemed to linger on in the arena. The reports were somewhat vague, but employees claimed to have seen Hart walking the rafters while dressed in his blue blazer costume, the persona that he was portraying when he died. The same witnesses claimed to have seen the cable that Hart used for his descent in the arena, and some claimed lights in the arena flickered during these sightings. People have also heard the sounds of a safety harness being adjusted in the rafters, the same activity that Hart would have been engaged in right before his tragic fall. So it seems that Owen Hart might be lingering on there in Kansas City despite his unfortunate passing almost 23 years ago now.
Yep.
It's been a while. But yeah, I remember that on the news. It was all over the place, and a lot of my friends were very, very much into WWF and stuff like that, and everybody was quite shook to the core after that tragic fall. So, shall I carry on?
Are we on NASCAR?
Not yet.
Okay.
Did you want to do NASCAR?
I want to do NASCAR.
I figured you would because
I have a connection to that one.
Okay, let me see real quick. All right. Tell you what, I will go ahead and read this one. And then we'll pass it back and forth. There's 2 more stories between now. So you read one, I'll read one, and give it back to you for NASCAR.
All right, so we're going to pop on over to Dodger Stadium, which is the 3rd oldest ballpark in the Major League Baseball, behind Fenway and Wrigley Field. Now, it is the oldest Major League Baseball park west of the Mississippi, and it's, of course, truly iconic. One of the few baseball stadiums that will ever be likely to be replaced. It was built in 1962 and has been home to the LA Dodgers for over 54 years. It's one of baseball's great pitcher ballparks and has been home to 12 no-hitters and 2 perfect games over the years. Located next to Chavez Ravine, the area was once home to a Mexican-American community composed of hundreds of families. In 1950, however, the park picked Chavez Ravine for the site of the new housing project known as Elysian Park Heights. In spite of protests from the community members, the city used powers of eminent domain to buy out residents, with promises that they would have first shot at the new housing until the ravine was nearly abandoned. Ultimately, plans for the new housing project were abandoned and promises to devote land in the ravine to public use were broken. By 1957, only 20 families remained on the property, and the following year, city voters approved a deal awarding the land to the Dodgers by a margin of only 25,000 votes. In 1959, law enforcement officials forcibly evicted the community's last remaining residents, famously dragging one woman from her house as she protested its impending destruction. It wasn't only the living that were displaced by the construction of Dodgers Stadium. A cemetery for the Hebrew Benevolent Society was moved to make room for the stadium's parking lot. The Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium was said to host many ghosts, often attributed to the residual anger of so many people who felt cheated and wronged by the construction of the stadium. A woman in white has been seen and heard by many employees. She's sometimes seen diving off of a cliff at the ravine, and she will sometimes release a bone-chilling scream. Legend has it that it is a woman who killed her children. Other specters include a couple on their honeymoon who plummeted to their death from a hillside overlooking the city of angels. When the Dodgers slide into a losing streak, it is often assumed the angry spirits of past residents are behind it. Families from the former residents even come every year to honor their ghostly relatives and encourage them to stay peaceful. Amongst the more bizarre legends are those about the stadium's underground vaults and tunnels. Some people say that these subterranean chambers lead to one of the 3 lost cities of the Hopi people that are now inhabited by lizard people. On that note, we're going to move along.
Yeah, that was kind of a talk about getting really kind of jumping the shark.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll cover lizard people in a cryptoids episode in the future.
Yes, we will have a cryptoids episode in the future.
But lizard people aren't on that list.
Yet.
My original list is very long. It's cryptoids from every state.
There's going to ultimately be, at some point, multiple cryptoid episodes, I'm sure.
Multiple.
I mean, we have already admittedly touched on werewolves, which do kind of fall in the cryptoid category. Certainly one of the more prominent ones.
Yes.
They got their own show. We'll give some of the other, maybe, overlook's not the right word, because many of them are very...
It's the lesser well-known ones.
Yeah.
Lesser known ones.
Lesser known, maybe less common?
Yep.
Because there's lots and lots of werewolves.
Let's just say there's Bigfoot in every state except for Hawaii.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Have you seen some of those guys on the beach?
They just use waxing.
Anyway, bad joke. Moving along.
I'm not even going to finish that rim shot.
Oh, God. All right, get to circle back to the NHL.
Yep.
All right, so NHL arenas have some horror stories of their own, including Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, home of the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was built on the site of a former prison that hosted many horrors during its tenure, including a fire that killed more than 300 prisoners. It was the deadliest prison fire in U.S. history. In 1834, where the Nationwide Arena sits today, the Ohio Penitentiary opened its doors for the first time to the guilty and incarcerated. Spread across 22 acres of land, it was an unsightly beige blight right next to the heart of the city. The whole building and every prisoner that ever crossed its gates seemed cursed with a troubled and sordid past. In 1849, a cholera epidemic swept across the jail, killing 121 convicts. It was also host to several riots, and one on Halloween of 1931, and another in August of 1968. In the 1950s, a virologist by the name of Chester Southam injected live HeLa cancer cells into several inmates to see if they could develop an immune response to cancer. The scientists later admitted that they were aware of the possibility that the subjects could develop the disease themselves. It caused quite the controversy and raised questions as to the ethics of informed consent. Over time, the prison grew a brutal and primitive reputation. Despite the prison's entire dreadful existence, there is a day of tragedy that stands apart from the rest. On April 21st, 1930, while construction crews were building an expansion of one of its buildings, a fire broke out on the scaffolding. The blaze quickly encompassed the compound, and amidst the pandemonium, some 800 inmates remained locked in their cells. Desperate screams echoed the corridors, but their anguish fell on deaf ears. The guards refused to free them. Not one of these men helped them to escape. A handful of the few prisoners managed to escape being locked in, overpowered a guard, stealing his key, and dashed back into the flames. They unlocked as many cells as they could, and as they went along, the other inmates helped carry the injured, attempting to put out the flames and saving as many as they could. Their efforts saved the lives of hundreds of their fellow prisoners. Despite the tragic fire, the Ohio Penitentiary would operate for several more decades. The buildings were eventually razed in 1997, and the site was redeveloped around the modern nationwide arena that opened in 2000. Today, patrons at the hockey games report the smell of smoke, the sound of men screaming and pacing their cells, and the sound of the flames burning the prison can still be heard, particularly around the parking garage. Considering the horrors that took place on the site for over 150 years, there is little surprise that the site remains an epicenter of paranormal activity to this day. And now moving on to the story that Beth requested.
Yes.
Well, what do we got here?
Yeah. Comments.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
I need just a moment.
Slide to. Okay, Chris,
I will fix it.
please.
I will try to fix it. I will try not to pause the broadcast again. Hope everybody's still there.
Okay, think we're good. No more zoomies, kitties.
At least give it just a few minutes.
Thank you, Patrick. This is why I sit closer to it, because cats.
That's a first, though. This is the first time they've actually managed to completely knock it over like that.
Yeah.
Ah, good times. What was I saying?
I don't know, there was a comment before I was getting complimented for my catching.
Yep. Prisoners are not guinea pigs. No, definitely
no,
not.
they're not.
V for Vendetta vibes with the experimentation on the prisoners and the prison fire. Yep.
Yeah.
And
That
yes.
is not cool in any way, shape, or form.
Way to use your athleticism, fitting for a sporting episode.
Lulu, do not get any ideas.
And everybody's still there. We can't get rid of them that easily.
Okay. All right. So the reason why I wanted this story is because when my parents lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was in college, and when I would come home, I would work bartending, waitstaff type things for special events. And one of the events I worked was actually for the Earnhardt family with their Christmas party. It was the last Christmas party that Senior was at. So I got to meet the entire family. I got to meet Senior and got a signed poster from them. Only a few months later, he was killed in the car accident during one big race. So that's why I wanted to kind of have this story, since it does sort of revolve around them. Now, the racetrack, of course, is not immune to the paranormal. NASCAR drivers fear the jinx of the Talladega Superspeedway. They report their cars handling strangely, only to find nothing wrong when they come into the pit area. While some might feel inclined to find a natural explanation for the mechanical difficulties, there's something about that track that gets into a driver's head. Perhaps it's the most famous story of paranormal occurrence happened at Talladega involving Bobby Isaacs, a NASCAR veteran. During the 1973 Talladega 500, he reported hearing a voice telling him in the middle of the race to pull the car off the track and get out, never to race again. Unbeknownst to Isaac, driver Larry Smith had wrecked earlier in the race and passed away from his injuries Smith was the first ever fatality at the Talladega Superspeedway. Isaac stayed away from racing for a while, though he did run a few more races in 1974 until his death in 1977. On August 13th of 1977, Isaac was competing in the Winston 200 at Hickory Motor Speedway when he was overcome by heat exhaustion. He died in the overnight hours after the race from a heart attack induced by the heat exhaustion. His friends that knew of the voice at Talladega came to wish that Isaac had complied with the warning issued to him 4 years prior. On a separate event in more recent history tells a different, warmer tale of the paranormal rescue. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is an amazing driver in his own right, but he does, of course, share the common name with his legendary father, who died in a crash in 2001 at Daytona 500. He was only 3 years later that Jr. had a terrifying brush with death during a practice session for the American Le Mans Series race in 2004. After a minor crash at Sonoma Raceway, Jr.'s car burst into flames, engulfing the entire vehicle in a fireball. Intense flames licked at Jr.'s flame-retardant driving suit, leaving him hospitalized with burns on his face and legs. Immediately after emerging from the inferno, Jr. demanded to thank the man who pulled him out of danger. His crew told him there was no one there. Dale recalled, "I don't even have an explanation other than when I got into the infield care center, I had met my PR man by the collar. I was screaming at him to find the guy that pulled me out of the car. He was like, 'Nobody helped you get out.' He was so convinced that someone had pulled him out of the driver's seat and asked to see the video of the crash, which confirmed he was alone. Dale Jr. believes that it was his father that pulled him from the burning wreckage."
Quite the tale.
Yep.
Earnhardt's are classy crew all around.
Yep.
But yeah, I do remember that day that senior passed away
Yeah.
very well.
My mom called me to tell me because I hadn't watched the race that day. I
Yeah.
was in grad school.
Yeah, I had friends that were very, very big fans. And when I was in, we were both in college at the time, and that was the only time that I saw my one friend cry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
He and his sons are amazing. When you talk to them in person, they were really good guys.
yeah. But he is missed. Hard to believe. Gosh, been over 20 years.
Yeah.
But may he rest in peace. Classy guy all around.
Yep.
So we do have one more stop this evening, and for this we are going to be going down to the Big Easy, better known as New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans. Here we have the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, home to the NFL's New Orleans Saints. Now, football is easily the most popular sport in Louisiana, and the entire state turns its attention to college and pro football on fall and winter weekends. Though the Saints had a rough first 30 years, which is a pretty long stretch to have pretty rough stretch. It was actually enough. There was talk of the Saints abandoning New Orleans.
Yeah.
Just they were ready to give up on New Orleans. There had been talk of moving them to other locations, but they are still there to this day, as we know. Now, the football franchise has seen great success in more recent years, and it did, of course, win a Super Bowl in 2010. Now, this victory was just a few years after the Superdome had a front row seat to one of New Orleans' most tragic and tumultuous events, Hurricane Katrina in 2005. In the aftermath of the storm, the Superdome housed many displaced Louisianans for several weeks and served as a makeshift hospital and morgue. During the chaos, several people died at Superdome, and it was plagued by violence, drug use, and gang activity. The National Guard was brought in to handle security and to eventually evacuate the storm refugees to safer locations. Superdome was closed for about a year while repairs and renovations were completed. Aside from the Superdome's most dire hours in the aftermath of the storm, the stadium has a long history dating back to 1975. It has seemed too much for there to not be a few spirits hanging around the place. Before Katrina, the Superdome already had a supernatural tendency and a legend to it. The place was built atop the abandoned Garrod Street Cemetery, sparking plenty of paranormal rumors from the very beginning. As soon as construction started, crews started unearthing skeletons in coffins. Victims from the yellow fever epidemic of 1850 and the cholera epidemic of 1930 were buried there and never claimed by family. It was believed that the disruption of the dead's rest led to them to take vengeance on the team for the first 25 years. The belief in the curse was so strong that a voodoo priestess was brought in before a playoff game in 2000 against the Rams. While they did manage to win that game, the Saints continued to have struggles until the years after Katrina. Many believe that after the Superdome suffered its darkest moments, that the healing energy of the first game back helped to lift the curse. The immense positive energy from fans and players alike on September 25th, 2006 was thought to be enough to bring the team and the city back from the brink. For better or worse, since those days, the Superdome has been rumored to host all manner of ghosts and spirits. Even if you feel the curse is broken, you may want to be a little extra vigilant when walking down certain corridors on certain nights. That was our final story for this evening.
Yep.
And we do have a whole bunch more that we will share on another day.
Yep. Once I go down to another research rabbit hole.
Yep. But in the meantime...
Yep. Next show we're going to be doing Haunted New England. So that was another one that Alex suggested, and I dove down that rabbit hole very easily.
Yep. So we've of course shared many a tale about New England over the course of almost 2 years now.
Yeah. So just various, haunted hotels, haunted beaches, that sort of thing. So we're actually just looking at the Northeast Kingdom or New England, as it's known, in general.
Yep.
And there's going to be multiple ones of that too, because I have a lot of stories.
So many stories to share.
So many states.
So many stories, so many states. We did talk about, once upon a time, we talked about actually trying to do an episode for every one of the 50 states.
Which I think we need to get back to.
Yep. We've done a few.
Yep.
We've done Florida, we did Hawaii, we did Kentucky.
Yep.
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
I can't. It's a good thing we're done talking for this evening, relatively speaking.
Yes.
But, trying to think.
Not much more going on. Paracon was awesome.
Yes, Hanover Tavern Paracon was a blast. Definitely will be happening again at some point in the future, probably January next year. But that, of course, is ways off down the line, and there's many other events to plan for between now and then.
Yes.
So we got a, relatively speaking, full year ahead of us.
Yep. Of course, Haunted Key West trip, still going.
Yep.
Still got a few rooms available, so definitely if you want to get in on that, make your reservation and put down your deposit.
Yep, so, because that is going to be a blast.
Yes.
But really looking forward to that. And, let's see, I think, of course, we have tours running on the weekends.
Yes.
Friday, Saturday nights, we got Haunts of Richmond will be out giving tours.
Yep, and this is our last month for publicly scheduled Pop Hop and John Marshall House that we have
this month.
February
will be.
in 4 hours this month. February is the last public schedules that we have for those right now. We need to consult calendars.
Yeah, and we fully expect that we will offer those events again down the line. But those are the last ones on the calendar for now. But we got a good full year ahead of us. A lot of fun events coming up. And on a bright note, it looks like the after a very long 2-year hiatus that the Churchill Irish Festival will be coming back.
We will be there with a table.
We will be there with a table. We've already confirmed it, and because it takes place right on our front step. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. We are looking forward to that, and you can plan ahead for that. That's the last full weekend in March.
The 25th and 26th, I believe.
Yep, we'll have lots of episodes between now and then, of course, or at least several episodes between now and then. We'll remind you as those weeks and days and weeks and whatnot move forward. But so other than that, we will be back in 2 weeks. if you do want to chat with us before then, we always love to hear from you. Go ahead, shoot us a note via Facebook Messenger, if you will. You can always email us and all that good stuff. We love to hear from you. We love to chat with you. We love to answer your questions. And we appreciate you tuning in for yet another episode. And in the meantime, enjoy the Super Bowl, enjoy the NHL All Star Game, enjoy the Olympics. Got all that stuff that is going to at least be starting between now and our next episode in 2 weeks. So a lot of stuff going on. Just because it's cold outside doesn't mean you have to be bored. So, all right.
With that, have a good 2 weeks. We will catch you later.
Wait,
Question?
Sorry, yeah, I've got people chatting here. Craig here. He has seniors and juniors autographs as well.
Ah.
We actually do have those autographs secured in a secure, safe location. Mm-hmm. But yes, we have those autographs as well. Both stand-up guys. Mm-hmm. And thanks, Alex. She loved the Earnhardt story. Patrick got to visit New Hampshire and Salem, Massachusetts last October and had a blast. Yes, share some awesome haunted New England stories. Yeah. Both are beautiful locations.
Oh, and with that, Hocus Pocus has finished filming and it's coming out at Halloween. Hocus Pocus 2. Can't wait.
Tonight was spooky fun, as always, Alex. That includes the fun of us all dangling over the edge of a table by a cord. Yes. You can thank the boys for that. That was the boys, right?
That was the boys.
That was the boys.
That was the boys.
And Laura, thank you so much for tuning in. It was enjoyable. I went to New Orleans and heard about that. So yes, yeah. We have not been to New Orleans yet.
Well,
it's on the short list.
Yeah, I technically was when I was like 9, and we didn't go into New Orleans. We were on the outskirts for a convention.
And that also doesn't include we.
Yeah, so I need to get back.
You need to take me.
Okay, when?
I don't know.
When we have vacation time next year?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Your hair looks fabulous, by the way.
Yes, it's a lovely warm shade of pink and ginger again. I'm going ginger again.
Yeah. So now I'm just rambling.
All right, bye, y'all.
Have a good night. Hope to talk to you all soon and see you soon. Good night.